Welcome to PA History to Go, a series of videos presented by the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission with funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. These short videos, filmed at locations along the Pennsylvania Trails of History, serve to introduce virtual visitors to our sites as we explore the varied stories that make up Pennsylvania's rich history. Watch them all to learn about the people, places, industries, and events that make Pennsylvania so special.
I find the tactics and strategies of the Battle of Bushy Run to be extremely fascinating. Colonel Henry Bouquet totally expected his British Army to be attacked by Indians as he was making his way to Fort Pitt. He expected that attack to take place at the Turtle Creek Defile. He described that area as an area of high and craggy hills, and so he needed to try to find a plan to maybe avoid a conflict there. So what he wanted to do was march his army 18 miles on August the 5th to Bushy Run Station and have his army rest during that afternoon, and that evening at night march through that defile, hopefully unopposed. So it was a great plan, but the American Indian force had a much better plan: to attack the British Army 1 mile before they got to Bushy Run Station. So those British troops will have marched 17 miles in wool uniforms on a hot August day, carrying 50 pounds of equipment, and now all of a sudden they encounter an Indian force where they don't expect that to happen. So that's what the Indians did. It was a brilliant move on their part. Early on in the battle, Bouquet's men pushed the Indians away, and they expect this might be an easy victory. But the Indians simply vanished into the woods. They would reappear in another location and attack Bouquet's army once again. Eventually they would work their ways down the line of the British Army, attacking the pack horse train in the rear with the much needed supplies. So Colonel Bouquet realizes he needs to try to protect his pack horses. He has an organized retreat where he pulls the entire army back to a prominent hill, what he calls Edge Hill, and there he's able to take the pack horses and put them in a natural depression in that hill, which gives them a little bit of protection from the Indian gunfire. He has some of his soldiers unload the flour bags from those pack horses and place them on the top of Edge Hill. He creates a fort, not for the army to hide behind, but to protect the wounded. Now those wounded could be placed in that flour bag fort area, and they are out of view of the American Indian gunfire. The soldiers are put around the perimeter of Edge Hill, and so they are protecting the pack horses, they're protecting the wounded. Bouquet is expecting the worst. It's a horrible night. He writes a letter to Jeffrey Amherst, the commander-in-chief of all British forces, and it doesn't sound like the type of letter that one expects for somebody who's on the verge of a great victory. It's almost something to the effect of, this is our situation, this is what's going to probably happen to us, and you need to do what you need to do for the relief of Fort Pitt. Bouquet is able to actually implement one of the strategies that he had talked about for some time. Some people think that Colonel Bouquet wins the Battle of Bushy Run kind of on dumb luck, but that wasn't the case. Bouquet studied tactics, he understood warfare, he had served in the French and Indian War, he was familiar with fighting in the woods. He actually discussed with fellow officers the idea of a fake retreat that he's able to implement at the Battle of Bushy Run. So on August the 6th, he pulls 2 companies out from his circle. They go back to the military road. They're starting to go over the crest of that road, and they disappear on the other side. So to the American Indian force, they see what appears the British Army starting to retreat back toward Fort Ligonier. But unbeknownst to the Indians, those men simply disappear over the edge of Edge Hill. They reform. Their weapons are loaded, their bayonets are mounted, and all of a sudden they rise up from a smaller hill and they attack the right flank of the Indian force. The Indians do not expect this at all. They're totally shocked as the British Highlanders and troops rush forward with fixed bayonet, the Indians do the natural thing, and that is flee. They run off of the battlefield. The rest of the Indian force sees what's happening, and they follow the example, and they flee the battlefield as well. Colonel Bouquet expects that he's going to have to encounter the American Indians along the line of march. In fact, he does. That evening, when they are at the Bushy Run station, which the Indians had burned down previously, the men are resting, they're tending to the wounded, and they're getting water. Some Indians do show up. The British Army is able to drive the Indians away right away, and there's really no hostilities after that. So Henry Bouquet is able to march with the British Army to Fort Pitt. He arrives there on August the 10th. The Battle of Bushy Run is extremely significant for multiple reasons. First of all, it's the first time that the British Army is able to fight the Indians in the woods and actually win. This battle does save Fort Pitt from being captured. Had the American Indians captured Fort Pitt, they would have had access to much needed gunpowder and ammunition. That would have caused the Pontiac War to linger for much longer than what the war lasted. It would have been a huge setback for the British. Because Henry Bouquet wins the Battle of Bushy Run, the following year, 1764, he's able to lead a British force out to the Ohio along the banks of the Muskingum River and force the Delaware and the Shawnee to sue for peace. The Battle of Bushy Run is studied by military officers to this day. In fact, not only have officers from the United States military visited the battlefield, but so have officers from the Canadian and British Army as well. They want to come to Bushy Run. They want to walk the fields. They want to walk the hills, and they want to walk through the woods and get an experience firsthand how Colonel Bouquet was able to use the topography of the landscape to the best of his advantage, and also study the brilliant tactics that Colonel Bouquet used at the Battle of Bushy Run.